people in the room who might be on the technical side and who are thinking, hey, am I really ready to make the leap and become like a Ravi or a Tushar or a Ranjit or a Primit? Or maybe I should just stick to being a techie. What advice would you give them in a line or two, starting with Ravi?
My advice would be to look at your customer's customer. Just don't stay focused on your customer, but go one orbit beyond and see what your customer's customer wants, and then make them talk to your customer in your favor. That has always worked. And number two, you must know why you are doing it. So keep your connection with the spirituality at the highest level, as high as you possibly can. And then it works. It slowly starts working.
I think the one thing I talk about here is that I actually never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. Just like all of us, come to US, had a stint at Microsoft for about 6 years, so I just started to settle down, to some extent financially as well. But then went back to do an MBA at Kellogg, and at that point again, we were not in a very good, we spent the money that we've saved in the US, and I have a young daughter at that point, so we all have life realities before we decide to sort of take the plunge and become an entrepreneur. But what I realized was that fear often is actually much larger than the actual risk itself. And we make a lot of our decisions based on fear versus risk. So if I think of myself and say, okay, why should I become an entrepreneur? I had to evaluate what is it that I'll lose? So I would lose a job in McKinsey. I might be 2 years behind on my career in that way. But then the opportunity cost of what I could gain was much higher. So I think my thought process in this, as you're sort of thinking about a jump and next thing, is often things that we're worrying about are just stopping us. I think it's important to sort of write them out, figure out what those things are. So in our case, I had a conversation with my wife and said, this is the 2 years, this is how we're gonna live, is that okay? We rented a basement to become an Airbnb. And I felt like you always have to take the risk, but the risk is not as bad as it is. So quantifying that, understanding what it is, I think just gives the clarity of purpose to kind of go further. So that was how it happened in our case.
So I will share three things. One is, I think with a technology background, you're very well positioned to learn different things and lead a large team or business. I think it positions you very well. So that's the first thing I'd say. So they make excellent candidates for leadership, people with a technology background. The second thing I think, which is the most important thing, is you got to ask yourself the question is, what excites me? And it's your passion. Your point that you made is, am I passionate? What drives my passion? For me, it was, when I made the leap, was being able to set the innovation agenda for the business. That's the most exciting thing I find is, when I look at everything, how do I take a whole team of people and drive new innovation that solves a problem? The last thing I'll say is, you don't always have to be a business leader. You can be a leader in any role that you play. Leadership is independent of the number of people you're managing. It's about driving to a new direction. It could be an individual role as well. And we actually, in our company and for my team, have started recognizing people who are what I call individual leader contributors. So those are the things that I would share.